Good evening. I'd like to call the regular Town Council meeting of March 4th to order. And next is the Pledge of Allegiance. If can all, those who can rise. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
All right. Councilor Baganski?
Here. Present.
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 Here. Next is Mayor's remarks, item 4. And good evening. On Wednesday, February 27th, I had the opportunity and privilege to attend the ribbon cutting and grand opening to welcome Orthopedic Associates of Hartford to South Windsor. They are located at 25 Buckland Road. On Saturday, March 2nd, I had the privilege to attend an Eagle Scout Court of Honor for Isaac Gonzalez from Troop 186. Isaac's project took place mostly at Beth Israel Cemetery in Hartford. With the help of fellow scouts and family, Isaac organized and collected photographic data to build a website where family and friends can research and find their loved ones' graves. Also on March 2nd, I attended the South Windsor Hall of Fame induction ceremony. It was a sold-out event. There were 8 individual inductees, 2 posthumously, and the 1991 boys indoor track team as part of the class of 2024. This Saturday, March 9th, the Central Connecticut Celtic Cultural Committee will be hosting the 2024 Greater Hartford St. Patrick's Day Parade to celebrate the 52nd anniversary of this event. The parade will be stepping off from the state capitol at 11 a.m. South Windsor will be stepping off in the 3rd position. The parade starts with the 5 C's, followed by the City of Hartford. The South Windsor contingent will be led by the South Windsor Police Honor Guard, followed by town and state dignitaries, 2 bands, the Windsor Locks Special Olympics hockey team, the American Legion, and will end with the South Windsor Volunteer Fire Department Honor Guard and Fire Department. I hope you can attend the parade in person, and if you are unable, please tune into CW20 or live stream on fox61.com. And finally, the 2024 hazardous waste collection schedule is available on the Town of South Windsor website. Click on the link, Refuse and Recycling, scroll down to the recycling links, and click on Hazardous Waste Collection. The collection location takes place in Manchester at 321 Olcott Street from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. Please bring a driver's license, tax bill, or car registration to prove residency. Collection dates are once a month on Saturdays with the exception of July, and that date is July 17th from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. And that's all I have. And next on the agenda is adoption of the agenda. Councilor Baganski.
Hereby make a motion for the adoption of the agenda as written. Second.
We have a second. Any discussion? Councilor Pendleton.
I'd like to amend the agenda to remove 11A on the consent agenda to 13F, new business.
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion? Councilor Pendleton?
Yes, 11A should not have, it doesn't require 2 meetings to appoint a person to fill the position, and it should be under new business to fill the position of a vacancy on the council. Does not require 2 meetings or 2 readings. So to just put it on under 13F as an appointment this evening is the right thing to do. It's appropriate according to the council rules.
Councilor Carey. Sorry.
Sorry. I'd like to make a correction on page 4, item 13C. The date on the public hearing should say Monday, March 18th, 2024. It says March, it doesn't have a date.
Okay, thank you. And we have a second for all the changes and corrections? Counselor King, or we have a second on the changes? Okay, thank you. That's okay. All those in favor of the amended agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Item 6, communication.
I'm sorry. I also would like to move 13F under, behind the adoption of the agenda, so he can be sworn in and seating this evening.
So do we have a rescission of the vote that we passed?
No, this is a new, moving 13F is a new procedure for the adoption of the agenda?
But we
So this is a
voted,
new change? And
But
I
we-
don't know,
but-
do we need separate votes, Mr. Corella? Do we need separate votes for amending the agenda?
so we amended it with her motion and
And
Counselor
her,
Carey's.
do we need different votes?
The prior motion was passed. If this is a new motion, you can make a new motion to amend the agenda. Somebody can second it and you can move on. You haven't moved on from there.
No, we haven't. But the first vote was two of us making different changes to the agenda.
Counselor
It was only-
Pendleton with removing 11A and adding 13F. And
Counselor
Counselor
Carey.
Carey with her change for 13C
Did Counselor King second that as well?
as a
Right.
second.
Okay.
He took a
So
second.
you're
And
fine.
we had a motion.
Those are okay, so now I
Those
have
are
a new
good.
one, a different one.
It's up-
Now I have a different change to the adoption of the agenda. We haven't moved on from there yet, so, and that would be to move 13F to after item number 5, which would be like right now, before the town manager's report, so he can be sworn in and sitting down for the council meeting.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Counselor?
Oh, no.
No? No more discussion? All those in favor of moving 13F after adoption of our agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Say opposed?
No.
Abstentions? Seeing none. Roll call, please.
Counselor Baganski?
No.
Counselor Lewis?
No.
Counselor Balboni?
No.
Counselor Carey?
No.
Mayor Delnicki?
No.
Counselor King? Yes. Counselor Pendleton?
Yes.
6 noes and 2 yeses.
5 noes. And 2 yeses.
I'm sorry, 5 and 2. 5 and 2.
Motion fails to move item 13F. Now, do I have to motion on the agenda? But- Or, okay. Item 6, Town Manager's Report. Mr. Maniscalco.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In terms of my report, Governor's Highway OSTA application. So just after last council meeting, a number of residents from the public submitted a petition to the town. That petition was denied by the town clerk. That said, I did talk with the chief of police. He's our legal traffic authority, and he has made an application to OSTA for not only Governor's Highway, but that whole neighborhood area, including Belden, because I know that was a concern of a number of people. So I did see that application that went out last week to the Office of State Traffic Authority to ask them to review the area and, if found appropriate, to limit truck traffic in those neighborhoods. I would expect it's probably going to be 90 to 120 days, which would be the normal OSTA review. They probably will come out on site, probably do some traffic studies, maybe even put some speed monitor just in and things of that nature. So, you know, we are going to try to meet the needs of the residents over there by making that application. And then additionally, I have asked the chief to look at doing some more targeted patrols in those neighborhoods as well to take some action on people speeding in those areas. So that's that one. Route 5 safety tour. The Department of Public Works and Planning and Zoning Department took part in a Route 5 safety tour with the State Department of Transportation. This was due to the frequency of automobile crashes in the area. Staff are trying to work with the state to identify causes and solutions to make Route 5 safer. And for those who travel on Route 5 more regularly, you may see some of the speed monitors that they've already put out there to kind of keep tabs on that. So we'll keep you up to date on that process. In terms of the splash pad update, the town is hopeful that the spray equipment for the splash pad will be delivered the first full week of March, so it should be any day now. Staff are also gearing up to start the work again as soon as weather breaks. The public can expect to see shade structures installed as well as tough coat applied when temperatures are going to allow. So we have to have the temperatures above a certain degree to actually apply those the tough coat. So hopefully work should get moving soon. Nevers Park exercise equipment. The Parks and Recreation Department has installed new exercise area in Nevers Park. This was funded in part through private donations and ARPA funds. The old exercise equipment was removed due to its exceeding its useful life, and it is causing a hazard to residents using it. The plan is to complete the flooring of the new exercise area and then install benches and stretching areas for residents throughout the trail. That should happen fairly soon as well due to weather. And then lastly, the Route 30 railroad crossing. The Department of Public Works has been working very hard, both with our state partners as well as federal partners, to elicit the replacement of the railroad crossing at Route 30. I'm pleased to report that funding from the railroad has officially been funding from the railroad has been officially put in place, and work on the replacement is expected to start around the third week of May. State DOT has committed to the pavement of that area as well. So it's a good improvement at no cost to the town. And that's all I have in my report today. If the council has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Councilor Curie?
Mr. Maniscalco, thank you very much for adding that Belden was included. I just have a question. Because we're doing general Governor's Highway, do you think that will hurt us in getting these two streets restricted? You know,
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
when I had asked whether Belden was included, and the town manager and chief of police did include Belden, and the way it was submitted was Governor's Highway area. Mm-hmm. And so my concern was, but by using like generic terms, if that might impact, you know, our getting approval on those roads, on those specific roads, that's all.
Thank you.
So I would first start with, if I could figure out the Office of State Traffic Authority, I'd probably have a totally different job because they're probably one of the more difficult state departments to work with. That said, I did read the actual application today, and it specifically outlines the roads in that area that need to be reviewed. So Belden is outlined, Governor's Highway is outlined, and a couple of others. So I think, I don't know how they'll view looking at it from a regional perspective or looking at a number of neighborhoods, but I do know that their specific roads are called out in there. So I don't think it's like, I don't think what's going to happen is they're going to come in and say, well, we'll just not do it on, you know, no trucks on Governors, but they're still going to go on Belden. I think it is going to look road by road at specific areas.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure.
Councilor King?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for your report, Mr. Maniscalco. First off, I appreciate the question from the counselor. I will say, living right around the corner from Governor's Highway, I did take a walk and talk to several of the neighbors that were there, and this is in the past 48 hours, and they appreciate what's already started to happen. They've already seen some things, some ticketing, so blah, blah, blah. So kudos, keep it going. They're just going to wait and see what happens. Some of the things that have been suggested, and I don't know if this is something that we can do. However, I recognize that Ellington Road is a state highway. I recognize, or State Street, I recognize that Route 5 is as well. However, two things, and you and I have had these conversations before, and I know we couldn't do it for Route 5 because of the state. However, Ellington Road going down Governors and Route 5 coming down Governors, would it be possible to put cameras there? I say that to say, can you imagine, for example, all throughout the country, except for the wonderful state of Connecticut, we have easy passes. A car passes, they don't have an easy pass, boom, the license plate is checked, next thing you know, you get a ticket at your house. Can we imagine for a moment that if we had cameras that were set up for Governor's Highway, that anytime a truck passes, because we have that ordinance set up, boom, no, they're not gonna hear about it then, but then their owner of that truck is gonna hear about it and say, where's all these $100 tickets? That may, Cortell, just something to think about, just wanna throw that out there. The second piece, and I'm not sure, I do know that they did this in Hartford, where they had a bunch of people speeding, and I know we've talked about it here in South Windsor as well, where we might be able to set up speed bumps. I don't know the cost of that, but that's just something else that was kind of brought up. So just to kind of put those out there in terms of helping out those residents that live on that street. In regards to the Route 30 railroad crossing, do we have a cost or timing in regards to the last sentence the state DOT has committed to the pavement, or is that the same kind of response that we just gave, like we don't know?
Well, we don't know what the state's gonna pay for that, or when they're gonna get to it. It's in their paving queue, so we were not made privy of when they're gonna do it, but we've been told they are going to do it, so,
Okay.
yeah.
In regards to the splash pad update, so I remember at a certain point, we talked about the cost of the splash pad, all the movement, if we were gonna use our people, somebody else, blah, blah, blah. Where did that end up?
Sure, so due to the contractual obligations that we've entered into, the splash pad company has requested that they continue forward with their people, that their subcontractor that they hired to be able to continue to move that forward, because I think from kind of reading between the lines, from what I could tell, it seems like they would probably have penalties if they drop their subcontractor as well, and then they'd probably try to pass those on to us, which of course we don't want to do. So they've asked to try to move forward with them. At a certain point this winter, we were told that maybe they weren't going to be moving forward with them and that they had separated. Now it seems like they might have made amends and now they're working together. So it's a little up in the air, but I think they're going to continue to move forward with their contractor. They have told us we are going to get it done this season. You know, whether they pull through on that, you know, we had hoped we would have it a little further along last season than we ended up with. You know, I think some of it's going to be weather dependent because, of course, the tough coat can't go on unless we have consistent temperatures, and what that temperature is, I'm not sure, but it has to be a consistently warm temperature of something. So that may be a challenge to us. And then additionally, the actual equipment still has not been shipped to the town. It's supposed to arrive this week. It has not arrived yet. That has been a consistent issue throughout the entire lifetime of this project. Whether it was getting the fittings in the beginning, those took an exorbitant amount of time. Now we're actually looking to get the sprinkler heads and things of that nature. So that's, you know, we've been waiting for those since last year. And we were most recently told that the slide for the whole splash pad is still in China. It was what was explained to us. So, you know, we can probably open the splash pad without the slide installed, but yet, you know, having the other pieces of it. So hopefully they start getting their act together and, you know, putting the actual equipment in containers and shipping it off to us.
So do we have, thank you for that, do we have any repercussions, or is it just basically when they can, then we do, and if they don't, then
Well, we've played pretty hard with them so far. Myself and Attorney Carella have been on a number of conference calls to date, and they've been not pleasant at all, to be very honest. We've been very, very difficult with them and had some very uncomfortable conversations. And, you know, we've run pretty close to the line of actually ending up in court to battle this out, which I think is probably not the best solution for everybody involved, not them nor us. You know, so our hope is that we can get some action out of them and get the splash pad put in place. in all seriousness, and I've said this a number of times to them and to a number of the staff that are involved, this is probably one of the least costly projects that we have in place, and yet it's causing more headaches and angst than, the bridge at Pleasant Valley. I mean, that was a multi-million-dollar project that went in without a hitch, and while we had, disruption to the public, it was planned and it came out very well. So there's really no reason for this, and it should come together a lot simpler. We've got a number of disappointments in the company that ended up doing the work, but that's kind of, for lack of a better term, and excuse the pun, water under the bridge at this point. So hopefully we can kind of move forward and get the project on this spring and get it open for residents.
So do you have a no-go date in your mind that if it's not done regardless, I mean, somebody could keep telling us if we don't have control, and I apologize, fellow counselors, if you don't mind.
You're thinking the
If we
same
don't-
questions.
If we don't have control over bringing the materials in, they could just keep telling us until Jesus comes back that they don't have the materials. So in your mind, is there a no-go date where you say, let's just say April, that wouldn't be a month, but January, February, March, April, May, June. Say it's June 1st. Then you come to us and say, hey, guys, we're still sitting, Louisiana done built like 5 of these already because they have splash pads all over the place. So do you have a no-go date in mind? I recognize the difficulty.
Yeah, I'm hesitant to talk about it publicly at this red hot moment, but I do have kind of an idea.
Right, but you do
where-
have something in your mind?
Yes.
Okay. I did want to say, and I'll be brief, in regards to the police department's report on 1, 2, 3, 4, to combat this issue, this is, for my fellow counselors, this is probably about 3 or 4 sentences up from the bottom. In the first paragraph, to combat this issue, the police department has received grant monies that allow us to put, extra officers on overtime to focus on reducing car burglaries and thefts. Police department continues to explore utilizing other tools that will maximize our effectiveness. I just wanted to say publicly, great job to them in receiving grant monies and not putting that on the taxpayers in regards to putting extra officers on overtime to reduce the burglaries and thefts. The last thing that I have, you guys can tell I read through this once or twice. On page 7, under Public Works, December 1st, 2023, under the Pleasant Valley Road Reconstruction Phase 1 and Bridge Replacement, and I appreciate you bringing that up, not a bad way, but a good way. The remaining punch list items, blah, 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 blah. Will this all be done before this season, the swimming season? Because if the plan is to pave the lower parking lot, stain the concrete, if that's not done by then, people aren't going to be able to drive down to the park, right?
Correct. So, we can't, again, it's another weather-dependent scenario based upon how long the weather stays warm and when asphalt plants will actually open. We're not really sure. In terms of the bridge and the punch list items, those items shouldn't impact residents too significantly. They should be able to work with at least one lane open, if not both. So, I've already told them not to impact the park any further from last year, so hopefully we can get it done before Memorial Day when the park officially opens for the swimming season.
And finally, on page number 11, I sound like a preacher that says I'm coming to the end of my message. Under the senior center, where it talks about a huge increase in people joining the center since September, a total of 317 residents joined with a total of 219 non-residents. Word continues to get out about the variety and quality of our programs. So shout out to the Human Services Department and the Delton Senior Services under the direction of Ms. Andrea. I wish she was here. However, if you could ask her, what is the impact of the total 219 non-residents that are using our stuff?
Yeah, she and I have actually had that conversation because they are, our senior center is becoming so popular with other communities that are not a part of our community.
Right.
She's actually increased the use rate or the use cost for non-residents. To have them help subsidize the more of the services that our residents are paying for. So that's was partially in an effort to reduce the number of non-residents as well as to have them pay more than their fair share. I don't know if she's actually seen that change yet at all, but we are keeping an eye on it.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Can I go back to two items, though, that you did bring up in the beginning?
Yes, please.
In terms of the camera idea and issuing tickets would work, but we can't issue a ticket at this point because those roads still allow truck traffic on. So even if we
Because why? I'm sorry.
they still would allow truck traffic at this time. So if we were to put a camera up, there's no ticket to be issued at this point.
So what does the ordinance say?
Well, the ordinance says no truck traffic, but that's not considered legal. It's been determined by one of our past town attorneys that it wasn't legal to do that and that it can't be enforced.
So we just have some green signs up?
Yes.
Okay.
So that was that one issue. The other issue in terms of speed bumps, we've dealt with that issue in some residential areas. They cause some pretty major issues for us when we do plowing, first of all, and they're a real big maintenance issue associated with plowing. And second of all, in places where residents have speed bumps installed close to residential areas, you hear a lot of complaints related to noise associated with vehicles because one, people go over them too fast and bottom out on them, which causes a lot of noise, or two, get angry about them and then lay on their horn and cause even more noise. So those are two of the negative sides we've heard to them, so.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Balwin?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Maniscalco. I had a quick question about an email we received about the quality of the roads. I actually did take a ride down Kelly today, and I drive down Avery every day. I go back and forth there to work every day. And Mr. Waltz, who wrote this email that he didn't ask to be read into the record, but I wanted to make sure that, you know, we addressed it somewhat. The Kelly Road, basically from Tri-City Plaza up to the sign that says, "Welcome to South Windsor," or South Windsor Town Line, is beautiful. And then after that, it starts with those spider webs. Again, I'm no paving expert whatsoever. But I see that that's all patched up, and obviously Avery, I believe, from Deming all the way to Pheasant, I think it is spider web the whole way. And then it seems to be good between Pheasant and Dart Hill. I'm not sure when exactly any of these were paved, but he seems to be of the opinion that there's some sort of political side to trying to do quantity over quality, and it looks like he wrote to you about it, and he said something about past administrations. I haven't been asked anything about paving, so I'm also assuming that Public Works knows how to do their job.
Correct.
So I'm hoping you can speak to that a little bit.
Sure. So the Public Works Department uses the state standard for paving, similar to like what was used on Avery Street, because that was a state-funded project. We were required to use the state standards for paving. Consistent with that project, with the Kelly Road project and all the others, we do hire third-party inspectors to do inspections of the work as that work occurs, so to ensure that those processes are made. You know, we did a little bit of a deeper dive into a number of the roads that that gentleman identified. And I think it's interesting when you start looking at when they were actually paved, the amount of time that has passed from when they were actually paved to now is a lot longer than I think a lot of us would think. Some of the roads were over 20 years since they've been paved. The average lifespan of a road is about 18 years. So, you know, when you start looking at the amount of time that's passed, I think we don't always recognize how much has actually gone on. And as a result, you know, they do get to a point where they need to be replaced. You know, our pavement for project, or pavement for progress plan that was put in place 2 years ago, I think, and funded with the referendum funds this last year. You know, that process was put in place and done with a number of outside third-party engineers that came through and reviewed all the roads within the town. and they conducted an assessment of them and used a measurement tool for identifying which ones are the priorities and which ones are not. And based upon their priorities, we're working on trying to get those paved moving forward with those funds. To date, we've really only had the opportunity to use 1 year of that funding, and we've got, I think, at least 4 to 5 more years of funding left, work left, let's put it that way, to keep going. You know, I think it's important as a part of this conversation, and actually I'm really appreciative that this gentleman brought it up. It's important that we keep in mind that our infrastructure is probably one of our largest assets, particularly our roads, and if we don't pay attention to it, they very quickly can deteriorate, and you can very quickly lose an entire season of construction. Unfortunately, in Connecticut, due to the way our weather patterns work, and this is kind of the conversation we end up having oftentimes in spring anyways, you know, we get kind of cut out of a portion of the season due to the cold weather and the costs associated with paving in the winter and things of that nature. So, you know, we can't do that work then. So in the event that we don't have the funding to be able to do the construction work in the very short span of time that we have during the summer, we have to really, we miss an entire year then, essentially. So it's really important we pay attention to that funding, and as we move forward, that's going to become a more and more critical item.
Excellent, thank you. Like I said, I'm no paving expert, and I can definitely tell you my road could use some help. But I drove down Beelzebub today. I believe that's one of the most recent roads that have been done, and that's absolutely beautiful. I mean, it used to go down that and I'll spill your coffee and everything. Now it's flat as can be, so I'll keep an eye on that one 2 to 3 years from now, see if it looks like a spider web.
The one comment that our Public Works Director did make to me that I think does stand out, you know, we do work on a bidding process for a lot of these roads, and we're always awarding the bid to the lowest qualified bidder. That doesn't always mean that they end up doing the best work. So that's why we do have outside inspectors come and try to do that. We do a lot of negotiating after the fact when we find issues. Collins Crossing is a great example recently that, you know, a contractor came out, they didn't do the best of work. It was identified through our inspectors, and we've worked out a really good plan to have them back out to repave a good portion of that. So we're watching it very closely, but again, you know, the lowest qualified bidding process isn't always the best process, so something to always watch.
Well aware with the bidding process.
Yeah, I'm sure you are.
Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no more further questions. Thank you, Mr. Maniscalco. Moving on to item 7, public input for items on the agenda. Public input shall not exceed 30 minutes. When recognized by the mayor, the speaker shall approach the lectern, give their name and address. Speakers shall avoid personal attacks or impugning or alleging an improper motive to any person. The speaker may address the council on any item on the agenda. The speaker shall be limited to 5 minutes. Anyone like to come forward at this time? Mr. Kennedy?
Joe Kennedy, 81 Allison Drive. First, I'd like to thank the councilors and all the commissioners for their hard work and their dedication. I know it's budget season, everyone's putting together their wants and their needs, and we appreciate all the hard work that all the different departments done. I think a 0% tax increase should be the town's goal. Hopefully, the revenues that we've generated will cover the wants and the needs. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. Anyone else like to come forward at this time? Mr. Appleton?
Hello, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, councilors, for providing me this opportunity to speak about an agenda item 13F regarding Mike Pare as a member of the town council, an appointment tonight. Of course, we all know Mike as a well-respected business leader in our community that serves South Windsor with distinction as a member of the Board of Education for multiple terms. He'll be a key voice on the town council, not just for issues moving forward, but also for the critical budget debate and discussion that's going to be continuing throughout. He'll be a bipartisan voice, and this community can be proud of that for sure. I urge passage tonight of Mike, and looking forward to seeing him join you all as a member of the town council. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yep. There's no.
Anyone else like to come forward at this time? Going once? Twice? Seeing none. Moving on to item 8, adoption of minutes of the previous meeting. Councilor Pendleton.
Approval of the February 20th, 2024 Town Council meeting minutes. Be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby approves the minutes of the regular Town Council meeting of February 20th, 2024.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Councilor Carey?
There is just one error on the minutes. It indicates that on reporting on the planning and zoning, that Dr. Carter had come and spoken about the fields, but Dr. Carter came and spoke about the enrollment and the forecasted enrollment. I think Kathleen has those words.
Okay. Page 4.
Page 4, item 9, third paragraph.
Where it says Councilor Carey. Any other comments? Seeing none, a motion to approve the agenda, the minutes as amended? Second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Item 9, communications from the liaisons, officers, and boards directly responsible to the council. Councilor Baganski?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Real briefly, we had the Economic Development Commission meeting last week. Not a lot going on at this point in time. 2 projects of sizable nature, still in ongoing discussions. Hopefully they'll be getting closer. And the only other thing we really talked about was a refined approach to that business registry that was talked about at the last council meeting. I think they're going to kind of pare it down a little bit, and but expect at some point they'll be back in front of us to discuss an abbreviated approach to that at this time. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. Councilor King?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Last meeting I talked about, ironically, right on page 4, section 9, about the Social Justice and Racial Equity Commission having their Social Justice Day this past Saturday, which was phenomenal, especially for their first one. It was very well attended. I'm very happy with the way that the community came together. There had to be at least 5, 6, or 7 different tables, including School of the Deaf. I mean, it was just very well attended. The presentations by the 3 different individuals that spoke were very informative, including our own from South Windsor, Mr. Cabot, which was amazing as well. I'm just very thankful that not only did we pass the resolution, but also thankful to Madam Mayor for the citation that we were able to present. I know that Senator Anwar, he came and presented something as well to try to outshine me. That's okay, though. But I'm very thankful that everybody that was involved in this, including some of the individuals that are out there in the audience, put this together, and that the town council was supportive of it. It really was a great event.
Thank you. Councilor Carey?
Planning and zoning met this week. They discussed feedback from the public meeting held at the community center to obtain resident feedback on the plan of conservation and development. As you all know, this is something that has to be completed every 10 years, and planning and zoning has been working diligently to get that completed. They also approved an expansion of an existing business on Burnham Road.
Okay.
That's all.
All right, thank you. Councilor Balboni?
Yes, I didn't necessarily attend the Patriotic Commission minutes, but Mrs. Plummer sent me the information. and she asked me that I please remind everybody about the essay contest. They're looking for the March 8th deadline to have everything there. Everything's posted on the Patriotic Commission's Facebook page. It was also sent to all the South Windsor social media accounts that they know of, including all PTOs. All South Windsor schools have been sent the information home electronically to parents, and confirmation's been received that one out-of-district school also has been given a form for the South Windsor students. So again, that's March 8th is the deadline for the essay and poster contest for the Patriotic Commission. Also, the banner project for 2024, they're looking for some more nominees from residents, veterans that haven't been nominated and participated in this banner project before. Should be able to contact them through the website. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, reports? Seeing none. On to 11, consent agenda. Having none. No first readings. Reports from, sorry, I wrote over it with my other notes. Reports from committees. Do you, Councilor
No,
Pendleton?
I just have a question. The Personnel Committee had met?
In executive session, yes.
Well, can we get a report that you guys met and whatever happened, happened? You don't have to share executive session, but
We
report.
discussed the clerk of the council position and our next steps, and we're having the director of HR do some research on the position in other towns through CCM.
Okay, so will the position be posted shortly?
The committee will meet again once we get the information back from the director of HR.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, moving on to item 11, consent agenda having no first reads. 11B, no second reading. 11C, miscellaneous, having none. Item 12, unfinished business, having none. Item 13, new business. Discussion item, additional early voting location. The Registrar of Voters Sue Larson and Sue Burnham are here to present.
I'm Sue Burnham, Republican Registrar of Voters.
And Sue Larson, the Democratic Registrar of Voters. We're here today because under the new statutes for early voting is taking place in one location unless your population is over 20,000 and your legislative body can approve a second location if they so desire. We're here today because both of us have agreed that we only need one location.
Yes. Yes, I second and agree with that.
Yeah, did you want to talk about the reasons why?
It's, the first reason is actually there's an additional cost if we go with a second location. The cost is approximately $10,000 additional to go with the second location. To let the public know, we currently have decided to have the one location here in the council chambers. And we will have both the primaries in here, the Republican and the Democratic primary. And the hours are 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. The process is quite similar to, you know what, before I go on with the process, are there any questions on the additional location?
Councilor Pendleton?
You mentioned cost. What is the cost of the one location? The extra cost?
Approximately $10,000.
$10,000 to do one location?
Yes,
Okay.
And an additional 10 if we did go to
yes.
another location.
Correct.
So like, it's basically 10,000 per location.
Yes,
And then you also mentioned hours. How many days? Is this just one day or how many days?
4 days.
4 days? Okay.
And-
Thank you.
And those days are, again,
they are Tuesday, March 26th, Wednesday, March 27th, Thursday, March 28th, and Saturday, March 30th.
Not the 29th?
No,
It's a
Oh,
holiday.
thank you. That's Good Friday. Okay, so it would be the 30th?
And they did give us Easter Sunday off.
Oh, how nice. Okay.
and the hours are like general election hours, 6 a.m. to 8 p.m.?
No, the hours are 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. And then, of course, on Tuesday, April 2nd, is the primary, and the hours for that, as you just said, are 6 a.m. to 8 p.m.
And it's up to this body to say yes or no to a second or even a third, fourth location because of our population.
Correct.
But you're not asking for one?
No.
No.
Okay.
No, Sue just mentioned the $10,000, but we also took a look at turnout for primaries. And of course, you know, unaffiliated voters are about 45% of our voter population, so the numbers dropped down quite a bit. We also needed a location that we can set up the Connecticut voter registration system, because that's how we're going to be logging in who comes in for early voting. We have that capability here in this room and also downstairs. And then for the security of the transport of the ballots, we wanted to make sure it was staying in this building and not having to transport them back and forth from another location.
Off-site, yeah. Okay. Thank you.
And for security purposes, when they come in here to fill out their ballot, it's going to go in an envelope, and it's going to go in a box, and then at 6 p.m., you're going to take that box and it's going to go into the vault?
No, it's going to go into the back room of our office, where we have two doors that are locked with a special key that we're the only ones that know how the combination to get that key, and they'll be in a fire-safe cabinet.
And to further go over what you had mentioned, the ballots will go in a box. They will not be fed through the tabulator. The voter will not be feeding their ballot through the tabulator.
It's going to be basically the same way as absentee ballots, in an envelope, and you hold it until the day of the election, primary
Correct.
or election.
Correct. Correct. And the envelopes will be all filled out with the voter's name in the district. We need to keep track of how many voters per district, how many voted Republican, and how many voters voted Democratic.
And then the same way as on election day, if there was an early voter, if they want to vote in person instead, they have to say, I voted early, and you can pull they can't do that.
No, that is not acceptable. And an absentee ballot, you can do that, but not for early voting.
Okay.
So the early voting ballots are held in your possession, and who is going to, is it the town clerk or is it your office that confirms all those votes?
Our office with the town clerk.
With the town clerk,
We
because she
work-
has to sign off on it, yes?
At the very end, she'll be signing
Yes.
off on it.
Yes, she
Yes.
has to sign off on it. So many eyes see this, and it's not getting tossed around, but it's right there with the three of you, that she has to sign off on it.
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, I'd like to get a consensus are you done?
Yeah, well, yeah. Yeah, just want to know, we're going to have to come back and do this every time we have an election or a primary. So this is not something that you're deciding forever and ever. So we'll come back and we'll tell you if we want to recommend anything.
So you'll be
at a
coming
later
back for the November election?
And if there's a primary in August.
So there's a possibility that your budget is going to be going up $20,000 to cover the early voting?
The budget's probably going to go up 17% just because of early voting.
Well, yes, you have to pay people to do that too, right? I'm sorry.
Yeah, for this primary, the state of Connecticut is given every single town $10,500. So we're all set for this primary.
Okay.
But from there on in, it's, unless the legislature changes, it's coming out of, it's an unfunded mandate.
Okay.
So this one's a freebie for us?
And keep in mind, for this election, it's 4 days of early voting. In November, it's 14.
Right, and primaries will be 7.
So this is a learning experience for all of us.
In November, 14 days in November, you said?
Correct.
And that's paying folks for 14 days. Is there a day off during those 14 days? Is there a Sunday off? Is there, so your office and those folks doing this election are going to be working 14 days straight?
18.
18 days straight?
Because we have to start before the election, because we have to be in the office to register people.
Yeah.
Then the 14 days will go up until including the Sunday before the election. Then we're mandated to be in the office on Monday, the day before the election. We're here on the election day, and then we have 48 hours to get all the results in.
Oh, 18 days. Okay.
So, yeah, it pretty much, we're going to be in our offices 18 days.
Okay. And now, have you figured out the budget for that? For the extra funds that you're going to need to be able to cover that?
Yeah, we'll be talking about that when we come back to do the budget.
Okay.
We'll have that all laid out for you.
As you said, it's an unfunded mandate, so that money's going to have to come from somewhere to be able to
Correct.
do your jobs correctly.
Yep.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Councilor King?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just for clarification, this is not a South Windsor thing.
No,
This is, let's just be clear.
correct. Every single town and city in the state of Connecticut's going through the exact same thing.
One more time for the people in the back.
Every town and city in the state of Connecticut's going through the same thing.
Thank you.
And you wouldn't have to be here for the proposal if we had less than 20,000 people?
Correct.
All right. So you just need an answer for us to answer back to the Secretary of State's office that we agree with just having the one location?
Correct.
Yes.
Yep.
So we have a consensus that, okay. There you go. There's your permission.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on, 13B, discussion item fiscal year 2024-2025, Board of Education budget presentation. Dr. Carter, Superintendent of Schools, to present.
The PowerPoint. Yep, not the budget book. Yep, yes.
The floor is yours, Dr. Carter.
Great. Good evening, Mayor Delnicki and members of the Town Council. I am pleased to present to you the Board of Education's proposed budget for fiscal year 2025. With so many new town councilors, I thought it would be helpful to include many of the slides I shared last year to provide context for our new leaders. Thus, like last year, I will begin this year's presentation with a map that reveals the most influential aspect of our budget story, South Windsor's status as an outlier. This map of Connecticut is color-coded to reflect statewide school enrollment trends over a 10-year period between 2012 and 2022. Visually, you can see many towns in reds, oranges, and yellows, all representing districts that declined in enrollment during this time period, including districts that declined as much as 25%. you will see a much smaller number of towns in green representing districts that increased in enrollment over this time period up to 10%. But what should be of most interest to our community is the sole town in purple. South Windsor is the only town in the entire state that is shaded in purple, indicating that it is the only town to increase its enrollment by a percentage greater than 10%. Let's take a look at the statewide breakdown. 19 towns decreased by 25% or more. 51 towns decreased by 15 to 25%. 39 towns decreased by 10 to 15%. And 46 towns decreased by 10% or less, for a total of 155 out of 169 towns experiencing declining enrollment. There were 11 towns that increased up to 5%. Only 2 towns increased between 5 and 10%, leaving only 13 towns of 169 that experienced increasing enrollment under 10%. Finally, South Windsor stands alone as only 1 out of the 169 towns that experienced a greater than 10% increase in enrollment. Our status as an outlier is undeniable and must be the lens through which the proposed budget is viewed. With that context, let's move on to the proposed budget. The proposed budget for FY 2025 is $94,650,656, representing a 7.29% increase over last year's appropriation. It is important to remember that we have been reducing our reliance on reserves over the past several budgets. Last year, the expenditure plan included the use of $1 million in reserve funds. Over the years, I have been very clear about the pitfalls of an over-reliance on reserves, as the use of reserves can mask the true cost of running our school district. This year's proposed budget does not rely on any reserves. Thus, when comparing last year's expenditure plan to this year's proposed budget, the increase is 6.09%. Let's put that 6.09% into context. The average percentage budget increase proposed by superintendents in 25 school districts in the Hartford region is 5.96%. This is important because it reveals that the 6% increase in spending in South Windsor is quite reasonable. 24 other districts in the region are proposing, on average, the same percentage increase as South Windsor, yet none of those districts are experiencing the enrollment growth we are. In fact, of those 24 other districts, 20 have experienced declining enrollment and 4 have remained essentially flat or with only marginal increases. Thus, one could argue that our proposed 6% increase in spending is far too low in comparison to other districts. But I proposed a budget increase as low as I could without undermining the quality of our schools. That is why it would be irresponsible to further reduce this budget and make the true cost of running and mask the true cost of running a growing district. So with that, let's take a look at some of the main drivers in the budget. The overarching drivers of the budget increase fall into one of 4 categories: costs associated with contractual obligations and maintenance of operations, increasing enrollment, special education, and strategic planning. In the first category, the largest driver is contractual salary increases. In addition, this category includes costs associated with healthcare, staff services, technology, and general operations. The second category represents expenses associated with increasing enrollment. Positions needed to respond to enrollment include 3 intervention teachers, a bilingual Spanish teacher, a multilingual learner teacher, behavioral specialists, 2 part-time office clerks, a high school associate principal, 3.5 high school subject area teachers, and a high school safety officer. It is important to note that this slide only highlights new FY25 positions associated with increasing enrollment. It does not capture the cumulative costs of increasing enrollment. For example, since 2015, we have added 24 K-5 classroom teachers. The cost associated with those contractual increases the cost of the contractual increases associated with those positions is not captured on this slide as part of increasing enrollment. Rather, those costs are captured within contractual obligations. In other words, the financial impact of increasing enrollment is not limited to new positions, and the cumulative financial impact affects all areas of the budget. The third category represents special education funding to meet IEP requirements and other mandated programming, including increases in outplacement costs, a speech pathologist, and school psychologists. The final category represents costs associated with strategic planning initiatives or improvements to programming. This category includes funds for the recently state-mandated literacy materials, MTSS resources, new course materials, SAT support, a high school virtual language lab, after-school clubs and programs, and athletic coaches. A detailed summary of the costs of the initiatives in all four categories can be found on page 4 in the budget book. Another driver of all school district budgets is unfunded mandates. With so many new board and town council members, I thought it would be helpful if I spoke for a few minutes about unfunded mandates and the impact they have on school budgets. Education-related mandates through the legislature are common and plentiful, but funding to support the new mandates is rare. Many of my superintendent colleagues are highly concerned about the increase in unfunded mandates, as the impact of these mandates on school budgets is often not fully understood by lawmakers. To put this into context, there have been more than 125 statutory mandates that have been added or amended just since 2015. Many of those mandates are well-intended, but not well-funded. Tonight, I'm going to highlight 2 unfunded mandates which are both well-intended, but also have a financial impact on education budgets. Effective July 1, 2023, the legislature passed Public Act 23-137, which extends the eligibility age for special education transition programs. Historically, school districts were required to implement transition programs for 18 to 21-year-olds who meet the special education criteria for programming beyond high school. In the past, a student exited the program upon his or her 22nd birthday. After recent changes to the law, if a student turns 22 after a school year has begun, then the student will receive services until the close of that academic year. Thus, a student who turns 22 in September would not be exited and would qualify for services for the remainder of the academic year. The budget I am presenting tonight contains an additional $118,000 for the continued services for young adults who would have exited earlier in the past. This is not a criticism nor a complaint regarding the spirit of the law, as the legislation was well intended, but it serves as an example of the relationship between mandates and costs. The second unfunded mandate has been a controversial one. In June 2021, the Connecticut legislature passed the Right to Read legislation, which required all Connecticut school districts to purchase new reading programs, but the legislature limited the choices to only 5 programs. Mandating particular curriculum materials with such narrow options was unprecedented. There was a great deal of concern regarding the quality of these programs and the lack of information about student outcomes associated with these programs. This mandate has been widely contested by many school districts, and as a result, there were some additional programs added to the approved list and more flexibility regarding implementation. Currently, there's $102,000 in this budget to meet the mandate for our K-1 grades. There will be additional funding requests for grades 2 through 5 in future budgets. It is important to note that prior to the state allowing for flexibilities, South Windsor did identify one of the 5 approved programs, and purchasing that program would have cost the South Windsor taxpayer $1,049,600. In response, our staff submitted a 167-page waiver to the state with rationale for keeping some of our current resources. Because we were able to continue using some of our existing materials and other less expensive products were added to the approved list of programs, we were able to avoid taking on such a staggering cost, but it certainly illustrates the significant impact that unfunded mandates can have on school districts. Now that I reviewed the drivers of the budget increase, it would also be instructive to showcase the significant reductions that were made proactively as part of the budget process. The starting point for our budget began at $99,030,037, representing a 12.25% increase over last year's appropriation. The starting point represents a budget in which all requests from schools and departments are funded and no retirement savings are factored in. Under those conditions, the increase would have been 12.25%. I have outlined the process we used to make $4.4 million in reductions from that starting point. In the first round of reductions, we factored in retirement savings as well as an energy credit from Eversource. It also represents various cuts across all accounts. Those actions allowed us to reduce the budget by $1.5 million, bringing the percentage increase down to 10.5%. In the second round of reductions, we cut new staffing and program requests, we significantly reduced funds for building and sites, and made cuts to the technology budget. That translated to an additional reduction of over $2.8 million, bringing the percentage increase down to 7.29%. Typically, in the past, I haven't gotten in the weeds and sharing this level of detail regarding the many cuts we make prior to finalizing a proposed budget, as I believe that is just me doing my job and doesn't require a lot of fanfare. But I thought highlighting the reduction process would be a helpful reminder of the approach I have used for all of my past proposed budgets. In fact, I'm going to read to you verbatim what I said during a budget presentation over a decade ago in January 2012. I had not planned on sharing these comments again this year, but again, with so many new board and council members, I thought it would be helpful context. The conventional wisdom in budget building is often to ask for 4% if you need 2%, ask for 8% if you need 6%, because there will always be cuts just for the sake of cuts. I had faith that if I delivered a transparent, straightforward budget, that the game of asking for more than what you need just to secure the minimum of what you need would be unnecessary. Although I made those statements over a decade ago, they remain just as true today. Because the proposed budget is the second highest percentage increase I have requested to date, some may wonder if my approach has changed. It has not. Inflating a budget just so that it can withstand cuts is nothing more than theater, and South Windsor deserves more than just theater. This budget increase is higher because it reflects the true cost of running one of the fastest growing districts in the state. It reflects the continuing effect of growing year over year over a sustained period of time. Speaking of increasing enrollment, let's take a look at our growth. Between 2015 and 2023, district enrollment has increased by 888 students. Today, demographers are projecting that our district will increase by an additional 620 students by 2033. This next slide demonstrates that South Windsor is clearly an outlier in comparison to other Hartford area Derby towns. The other 6 towns experienced either declining enrollment or marginal increases in enrollment. South Windsor stands in stark contrast with a 21.9% increase in its K-5 population and a 14.8% increase in its K-12 population between 2017 and 2022. While the percentages shared on the previous slide were compelling on their own, I thought translating these percentages into actual student counts might be an even clearer way of demonstrating how much of an outlier South Windsor is in comparison to the other Hartford area Derby districts. Using a 5-year look back from 2017 to 2022, Simsbury's K-12 enrollment grew by 24 students. Farmington's K-12 enrollment grew by 42 students. And South Windsor's K-12 enrollment grew by 616 students. That's quite an interesting fact when you see it with just numbers of kids. And then the 4 other Hartford County Derby districts declined in enrollment ranging from a loss of 111 students to 534 students during the same time period. Often, people read headlines about the budget increase for other districts and then compare that increase to their own. Clearly, one cannot open a newspaper or look online and compare South Windsor's budget increase to other towns without factoring in our drastically different enrollment growth. Some might even argue that South Windsor's 6% increase in spending over last year is surprisingly low in comparison to the budget increases of districts that are flat or declining. On our next slide, we see that our K-5 population is forecast to peak in 2026 and then remain stable till 2033. At TE, the next slide provides you with historical data and projected enrollment for grades 6 through 8. Between now and 2029, TE is expected to increase by an additional 276 students, followed by the first signs of a downturn in the year 2030. South Windsor High School has had relatively stable enrollment for the past decade and will now feel the ongoing effects of our enrollment surge, which began first at our elementary schools. Over the next 10 years, South Windsor High School is projected to increase by 463 students. On this next slide, we look at special education. And while our special education population did not increase overall, the intensity of needs continues to grow. Besides the moral imperative to meet the needs of all students, the district is also required by law to provide these services. Thus, very little is discretionary within the special education budget. I do want to highlight, however, our specialized in-district programs, which in their absence would increase the number of students being outplaced. For context, the cost of a single outplacement for our district currently ranges from $80,179 to $375,362, depending on the complexity of the student's needs. Because we receive partial reimbursement from the state, South Windsor does not bear the full cost of these outplacements, but understanding the total cost of just one outplacement for one student could be as high as $375,000 is important context. Our in-district programs allow us to best serve our students by allowing them to access their education in the least restrictive environment. But it also has the added benefit of being more cost-effective than outplacements. The programs listed on this slide are all offered in-district. They do require a great deal of staffing, but in the end, this approach remains more cost-effective than outplacements. Another example of increasing intensity of needs can be seen within our multilingual learner population, the category formerly called English learners. It is important to note that this slide contains data only for those multilingual learners who qualify for services, not all students who are multilingual. 10 years ago, we served 110 English learner students. As of October 1, we now serve 486 students. That is 4.5 times more students, or 342% increase since 2013. In response, the proposed budget calls for an additional multilingual learner teacher to support our growing ML student needs. We have also reached the state-required threshold for hiring a bilingual teacher. When 20 or more students who qualify for services speak a dominant language other than English in a single school, the state requires that the district hire a bilingual teacher. In this case, we will be hiring a bilingual teacher to provide services for our Spanish-speaking students. For clarification, this does not include all Spanish-speaking students, just those students who qualify for services. It may be of interest to note that 65 different languages are spoken in our students' homes. Let's take a look at how our ML population compares to other districts in our DIRG. As you can see on this next slide, in 2022, South Windsor had the highest percentage of ML students within our DIRG. Last year, 8.8% of our population required ML services. South Windsor has established itself as a community that champions public education and one that is committed to investing in its children. Families are moving to South Windsor for the schools. We know this because families tell us, but we also know this by collecting data. The first set of data comes from the town's recent community survey. As part of its plan of conservation and development, South Windsor conducted a community survey and posted the results this past August. There were several questions pertaining to our school system, and the results indicated the following. When asked why respondents moved to South Windsor, the top response was overwhelmingly the schools. The same was true when asked what makes South Windsor a great place to live, and the top response was also overwhelmingly the schools. When asked what is the greatest challenge that South Windsor will face over the next 10 years, the top response was town growth, specifically growing enrollment in our schools. I share this because it provides important context when making decisions about the Board of Education's budget. We know from this survey that people are moving here for the schools. We know that families are coming to South Windsor because they believe this is a community that champions public education, and they expect us to invest in our schools. We also know from this survey that our community is fully aware of the challenges of increasing enrollment, and one could infer that they also understand that more students requires more resources. The next set of data is found on the following 3 slides and demonstrates that our students and families are hungry for opportunities to increase student engagement. Last year, I read these aloud because they served as powerful testimony as to the demand for educational services. In the interest of time, I will not read them aloud, but I encourage our town leaders to review this information as it tells an important story. Our 23-26 strategic plan reflects our commitment to continuous improvement and sets goals that will deliver the outstanding educational experience our community demands. While I am advocating for the resources our students need, I recognize that this advocacy must also be fiscally responsible. I would not be doing my job if I sought resources without considering other competing demands and serving the taxpayer well. While my job is to be an advocate for the children and families of South Windsor, I am also responsible for managing over $90 million of taxpayer money. I take this part of my job very seriously. We are steadfast in our effort to deliver an outstanding education as efficiently as possible. In fact, the next 4 slides will clearly demonstrate that our district operations are highly efficient. Our long-standing efforts to bend the cost curve are evident in the recently published comparison of education spending by town. South Windsor's FY 2023 net current expenditures per pupil, NCEP, is significantly lower than the state average, and for the 4th consecutive year has the lowest NCEP in the entire Derby category. As you can see, for the past 3 years, every district in our DIRG spent more per pupil than South Windsor. The 5-year look back of a statewide analysis is even more compelling. In 2023, only 12 districts out of 166 spent less per pupil than South Windsor, with 153 districts spending more per pupil than South Windsor. Said another way, 92% of school districts spent more per pupil than South Windsor. Clearly, the Board of Education has been an excellent financial steward. Let's take a look at what our budget increases would need to be if we were simply aiming to match the average per pupil expenditures within DIRG B districts and the state as a whole. Last year, if we developed a spending plan reflective of DIRG B's average NCEP, we would have needed to spend an additional $18 million just to be average in our DIRG. The statewide comparison is even more compelling. Last year, if we had developed a spending plan based on the state's average NCEP, we would have needed to spend an additional $24.2 million. Some will look at this NCEP data as a badge of honor and will feel proud that we can run such a high-quality school district with such efficiency. Others will feel embarrassed that 92% of the state invests more per student than South Windsor. I genuinely understand both perspectives, but I am hoping that no matter whether people feel proud or embarrassed, that everyone can agree our NCEP data, coupled with the natural rising cost of our increasing enrollment, demonstrate that the proposed budget increase is warranted and reasonable. Failing to adopt a budget that keeps pace with enrollment is not fiscally responsible, as it just kicks the proverbial can down the road, and the deferred costs create spikes for future taxpayers. In other words, we cannot claim to be good financial stewards if we fail to adopt budgets that keep pace with enrollment. I conclude this presentation with pictures of our youngest learners on their first day of school, juxtaposed to our oldest learners at their graduation ceremony. These photos remind us of the educational journey our students and families take with us from kindergarten through high school. Along this journey, there will be important milestones for our children and families, but we must face the reality that as more children move to South Windsor to join this journey and reach these educational milestones, more funding will be required. In closing, I want to thank both the Board of Education and our Town Council for its unwavering support of our schools, and I look forward to working with you to deliver an outstanding education to the children and families of South Windsor. That concludes my presentation. I look forward to our joint session coming up later this month.
Thank you, Dr. Carter. So we're not going to be, I don't think anybody is going to ask questions tonight, or did you want to ask questions of Dr. Carter?
No, typically,
Okay.
this is just a presentation.
Okay.
And then the joint session is an opportunity for the board and the council to be at a joint meeting.
Because
to
you're
ask
just giving the
questions.
highlight to everybody
Yep.
tonight? Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And I'll be happy to answer any, I'm sure there'll be plenty of questions at the joint session, and I'll be
Okay.
ready to answer those.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, if I can just make a suggestion, just in
Sure.
preparation for that. Just in preparation, is it possible to also get our GPAs during your presentation?
GPAs?
The GPAs of our high school graduating students.
So some.
During the presentation, exactly.
Student
I just
data.
want to prepare you for that. That would be a question that I would like to know, especially in comparison to the other schools. I would like to know what our GPAs are for our graduating high school students.
Sure.
Thank you.
I also like a preparation. if you-
Counselor Pendleton?
Sorry, it's discussion. So with comparison to other communities where their enrollment has gone down, and you pointed out one that was gone down by 500, if you could get it 534 for West Hartford, if you could get us what their budgets requests may be, or what they are presently, you know, the increase last year and what they may be coming up next year, if you could possibly get those for the next time?
Those are included in the average. So we had 24 reporting districts in the Hartford region, although West Hartford was the only one that hadn't presented yet. But the 5.96% that I shared is the average increase for those 24 towns in the Hartford region. So those are all local, regional towns that their superintendent's proposed, just to be clear, their superintendent's proposed budget on average was 5.96%.
Yeah, and I'm interested in West Hartford's. Thank you.
Do you have something, Counselor
It-
Carey?
This is a very general question. Is there an organization or a vehicle that you use to provide feedback to the governor and legislature on these mandates?
Yes, so the Connecticut Association of School Superintendents is very active with the legislature. I do sit on the legislative committee of CAPS, but the leadership of that committee meets very frequently with legislatures to discuss this. And there's also the 125 statutory mandates that were education. That's just education. That I mentioned, those were compiled by Shipman and Goodwin, which happens to be our board attorney, but it's also a firm that consults with CAPS as well. So there's definitely an organization that speaks about these particular issues. And then there's other ways that we work with our legislators. Recently, I worked with one of our local legislatures on not so much an unfunded mandate, but some other ways that might provide financial relief for South Windsor.
Thank you.
Any other
If I
questions
may, just one more
for-
quick question. Just to touch base on the unfunded mandate of the Public Act concerning support services and persons, you said up to age 22, and if they were in school until the age of 22. Where are they being educated now, the location?
They are at the high school annex, the former Wapping School is where that program is. Our goal is to find a different location for that program. They are temporarily there, but that is not our ultimate goal for that program.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Balboni?
Again, on the unfunded mandates, I look at those two that you gave examples. I'm assuming there's a lot more, because those two make up less than 0.3% of the budget. I'd just be interested in what other unfunded mandates are being pushed down our throats by the state. Not right now. I mean, at that meeting, I would love a list.
Or I can contact CAPS to see if they have any kind of quantification of, have they priced out what some of these are? I mean, there are so many, but I will see if CAPS has any kind of data that would put a price tag on some of those. I use those two as just examples, just to kind of give examples. They were not, as you say, they're not the biggest drivers in our budget, but they're examples of what an unfunded mandate can do.
Thank you.
Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Dr. Carter. Moving on to the next item on the agenda, 13C, Counselor Carey.
Okay, be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby sets Monday, March 18th, 2024 at 8 p.m. in the council chambers of the South Windsor Town Hall, 1540 Sullivan Avenue, South Windsor, Connecticut, as a time and place for a public hearing to receive citizen input on a small cities grant for renovations and upgrades to Flax Hill.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Counselor Carey?
So I wasn't really sure why what the public hearing was about, so I wanted to share it with the public in case anybody else didn't know either. It might just be me. But in order for the town to go look for grants, they have to have a public hearing and the information has to be presented to the town. And Flax Hill is a facility that has some need for some repairs, and so that's the reason the town manager is working to get a grant to pay for those repairs. So that will be why we have a public hearing. Any other discussion? No, sorry, that's not mine. I've been good all evening.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. 13D, Counselor Balboni.
Resolution setting a time and place for a public hearing to receive citizen input on the proposed Board of Education budget for fiscal year 2024-2025. Be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby sets Monday, April 1st, 2024 at 8 p.m. in the council chambers of the South Windsor Town Hall, 1540 Sullivan Avenue, South Windsor, Connecticut, as the time and place for a public hearing to receive citizen input on the proposed Board of Education budget for the fiscal year 2024-2025.
Okay, motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Item 13E, Counselor Lewis.
Resolution amending the term ending date of the approved Town Council resolution dated February 21, 2023, reappointing Jan Tarr as a member of the Housing Authority. Whereas the Town Council resolution dated February 21, 2023, reappointing Jan Tarr as a member of the Housing Authority, as a Housing Authority has an incorrect term ending date of November 30th, 2028. Be it resolved that the Town Council hereby amends the previous approved Town Council Resolution reappointing Jan Tar as a member of the Housing Authority with a corrected term date of November 30th, 2027.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Moving on to the new agenda, item 13F, Councilor Pendleton.
Resolution appointing Michael Pere as a member of the South Windsor Town Council, postponing consideration of this motion until the Town Council's next regularly scheduled meeting. However, I would like to amend that to not say the next scheduled regular meeting, because he doesn't need 2 meetings for this. Be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby appoints Michael Pere as a member of the South Windsor Town Council for the term ending November 13th, 2026, to fill the unexpired term of Erica Evans. (2025), not 2026.
November 10th.
What?
November 10th.
November 10th, 2025.
It was submitted incorrectly. Okay, any discussion? Do you have a second and a discussion? Yep.
Yes, so discussion to appoint Mr. Pere to the Town Council this evening does not require 2 meetings. There's no need to postpone it to the next regular scheduled meeting. As the council rules state, to fill the position after the effective date, and Erica Evans' effective date was February 6th, 2024. So we are now into almost a full month, shy a day, of filling this position on the council, of which it could have been filled at the last meeting. But now this is our second meeting post-effective date. So I look forward to Mike being on the council and appointing him this evening. He would be an asset to the council, and there's no need for a second 2 meetings for this. And if I could get clarification from the town attorney if that statement is correct based on our council rules.
Your council rules are silent as to exactly how and when you appoint. So it does say in your charter that you have to fill the vacancy. That's your charge as the town council. You must fill the vacancy of the town council spot. How and when you do that is entirely up to you. It's a matter of local concern. It doesn't say that you have to do it at any particular time.
But to be a continuity of government and to have an unempty seat but a filled seat and to continue and to fill the vacancy as soon as possible would be the responsible thing for the council to do, correct?
Town charter requires the town council to fill the vacancy in elected positions, not only the town council, but other elected positions in the town, if in the event of a vacancy. You have to do that expediently. Doesn't say what date, but you have to fill that spot at some point. To leave it unfilled does eventually become problematic. Okay, but you have to fill that vacancy.
And it's already been a month and 2 meetings have occurred. This is our second meeting without someone sitting here.
Any further discussion? Councilor Balboni.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to be clear, my decision to vote against this appointment is not influenced by our previous council majority's stance on denying approval to any candidate who lost in the most recent election. I recognize and applaud Mr. Pere, his contributions to our town, particularly his service on the Board of Education. Volunteering one's time for the betterment of our community is a noble act and deserves acknowledgement. I also believe it's important that we provide fair justification when we decide not to support such individuals in their appointments. While Mr. Pere could bring a diverse perspective to the council, my reservations lie in his ability to constructively collaborate with the existing team or contribute to our unity. I believe that Mr. Pere's approach might shift our focus away from the local issues of South Windsor, which should always be our primary concern. This is not a personal criticism of Mr. Pere, but rather a reflection of my commitment to preserving the harmony and efficacy of our council. It is essential that we choose members who can seamlessly integrate into our team and positively contribute to our shared goals.
Counselor Lewis.
Thank you. I'm new at this, so I thought I had more time. My time would have been spent, I would have reached out to Mr. Perret and tried to have coffee with him, get to know him a little bit. Right now, I don't have an educated opinion. I've looked at some things on social media, which is all I have access to at the moment, and I tend to agree with Mr. Balboni that some of the national stuff doesn't belong here in South Windsor, but he's been a wonderful service to our town and to our community, which I appreciate and I thank you for. I had thought I had more time. Counselor Pendleton has kind of forced our hand, do it now, do it now, do it now, and I'm not ready to make a decision for that now. I don't have enough information, so I'd either have to abstain or vote no, because I don't know. I can't, if he was elected, that's different. This is an appointment. It's a bigger responsibility. We have to be sure. I haven't had time, and I hope you all can respect that. I would hope if it were me, someone would want to get to know me, get to know my background a little bit. So I just wanted to say that I think that's important, and that's all I got. Thanks.
Counselor King.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Since we're in a discussion mode, thank you, Councilor Balboni, for expressing your thoughts as well. So are you suggesting that in the way that the resolution was initially written, which was to appoint and postponing the consideration of the motion until the town council's next meeting, that would have given you the time that you needed or need in order to have a conversation, have coffee, so on and so forth? Yes, well, any of the councilors, but I just want to make sure, because that's what you just said. I understand what Mr. Balboni just said.
Counselor Lewis, you might.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Yes, that would allow me to have an informed opinion, which I don't have right now.
So the anxiety piece is just the fact of it being at this particular meeting and not the second. If you add the time, so on and so forth, then you might consider making a different decision than what you would make tonight, either to abstain or say no.
I may, yes.
Thank you, ma'am.
Any other further discussion? Seeing none. Oh, Counselor Pendleton?
Well, I'd like to follow that up with asking Mr. Balboni, too, if that would be the same if he had 2 weeks to think about this, to come back and revisit at a second meeting for Mr. Perret.
For my personal vote, no.
Okay. Okay. And then I'd just like to say, when you reference team, he's our team. He's not your team. He's our team. So I don't recall us ever working as a team on here, but I'm going to say for the team, for the town of South Windsor, and being a teacher, and being a Board of Education member for 6 years, he is a team player for the town of South Windsor. Absolutely. And having I appreciate your comments, but I'm just saying 6 years on the Board of Ed as an elected official, his heart and soul is into our community. So I support Mr. Perret's appointment this evening.
Counselor King?
Not to belabor the point, but Councilor Pendleton, would you consider if reassessing your amendment in regards to postponing consideration overall? So i.e., reading the resolution as written, resolution appointing Ms. Perret to the South Windsor Town Council, postponing the consideration of this motion until the Town Council's next regularly scheduled meeting. Would you consider that?
Okay, I'm going to make this clear. I'm not going to violate the council rules, and I'm not going to violate the charter. And if you guys want to sit there and violate the charter, and if you want to violate the council rules with requiring a 2-meeting appointment, I don't want to have, and I can reference to the town attorney for clarification on that, because I don't want you to take it from my mouth thinking that, you know, I'm the rules, but we have council rules that state this. So I'd like the town attorney to reference this before I make a decision.
I think that what we can do, to Councilor King's suggestion, is suspend the rules to do a second reading? Or is it because the rules aren't really clear about a first or second reading?
No, the rules are clear. The two readings, the two meetings are for board, commissions, and committees. The appointment to the council is at the next regular meeting after the effective date.
What's clear is that the charter requires you to fill the vacancy. The problem is your rules don't tell you how to do that. So the town council rules say that vacancies in elective office, including the Board of Ed, for whatever cause arising, shall be filled by the council. And in filling the vacancy, you have to pick somebody from the same political party. Goes on to say how you treat a non-registered voter in filling that vacancy, but that's not the case here. It says no nomination can be made until the resignation is effective. Ms. Evans' resignation is effective. Mr. Perez's nomination has been taken up. That's fine. Any nomination shall not be considered by the council until the first regular meeting following the resignation effective date. That's tonight. So you could not have taken this up prior to this evening.
And the nomination,
Okay.
and we're taking it up as consideration.
Listen, that's all it says, right? It says all appointments to fill vacancies shall be for the unexpired portion of the elective term, okay? It doesn't say when you have to make that decision. The items relating to a first reading and a second reading are found later in your rules under appointments to boards and commissions. When you seat somebody on a committee or a commission or on a board, you're filling that, you're making an appointment. You're creating that person in that position. You're not filling a vacancy in an elective office where the voters have chosen somebody and then they've vacated that office for whatever reason. Now you have to fill that elective office. It's your responsibility to do that. I wish your rules would have a little bit more clarity about it. I'm here calling balls and strikes, trying to figure out what the right way for you to do that is. And I'm telling you, you have to make the decision. You have to fill that vacancy. You can do it tonight. You can do it at the next meeting. At some point, you're starting to violate your own charter by not filling it, okay? I don't think not filling it tonight violates anything, okay? You could act on this tonight if you wanted to, okay? You don't have to waive the rules because there's nothing to waive. Your rules don't state how you do it, okay? So you have to act on it at some point, whether you do that tonight or if you want to wait until the next meeting. That's your prerogative. I think if you go beyond the next meeting, you're starting to really violate the charter because you have to fill it. You can't not fill it. You have to fill the vacancy. So you can choose to do that tonight. You can choose to wait a week, to the next meeting. But at some point, you have to fill that vacancy. It has to be with a Democrat member because that's the elected party, okay? And that has to happen.
Okay, thank you. I have it, Councilor Pendleton. Councilor Balboni?
I'd just like to respond to that about the team thing, and that's actually part of the problem that we have here. As we talked about before, we're a council of 9. I like to think that the entire council wants what's best for the town, and I like to think that we're all one team working together. I thought that's what unity was all about, but obviously I have a different definition of unity.
Thank you, Councilor Balboni. Councilor Lewis?
Actions have consequences. If this weren't forced out tonight, it could have had a much better outcome. So we need to accept responsibilities for how we do things. There's a decently and in order comes to mind. As we do things appropriately, decently and in order, and there could have been a lot more cooperation. I agree with Ms. Balboni that it doesn't matter. No one wants to stop a Democrat from sitting here because it's part of the South Windsor team, and we need to work together. And right now, we're not working together because one of us wants to push things the way they want, and they always have. it needs to stop.
If I may, just,
Counselor Pendleton?
thank you. If I may, and we have nothing to do with what you're saying with this being forced. This is coming from the Democratic Town Committee as their nomination to fill this position. This is not myself nor Counselor King bringing this name forward. This is coming from the town committee as a nomination. So forcing or bringing this up, anyone can bring up a nomination prior to at the agenda setting meeting, which was last week and which was discussed and is on our agenda this week. So that's the process, that all nominations come before a meeting by whatever political party that it is. It's not us doing any forcing whatsoever. And the only respective part that I was referring to, as the town attorney referenced, was Article 2, Section 3, on filling of the vacancy of our council rules. And that's the only piece that I don't want to violate the rules, and I want clarification. If we extend it to another meeting, would we be violating the council rules? Well, I'd like to.
There's no rule that says you have to do one way. There's no rule that says you have to do it tonight. There's no
Okay.
rule that says you have to do it next week. I think your charter says that you have to fill it. The council has to fill the
Right.
position. You have to do that in some sort of expedient manner, whether that's tonight, which is the first night that it could have possibly been heard, or do you want to wait until the next meeting, which I think is okay as well. I think you get beyond the next meeting, I think you start to run into trouble. That's my opinion.
Well, actually, it could have been heard at the last meeting, but the nomination didn't get in time. So I'm just saying, because it was at the next meeting after the effective date. So you asked me a question, Councilor King, if I would have a problem with putting this off for another meeting, hearing that it's not a violation of the council rules. That's fine. That's fine. If that would help you, Mr. Lewis, Councilor Lewis?
I'm just one person, I express my.
Okay.
Anyone else? Okay, well, I had a concern when I saw the name first came up, and I know Mr. Perret, but concerned about national issue comments coming up, and they have been happening around at other council meetings in the state. Hartford had one, for example. I believe public input lasted 2 hours because they do not have a rule, and that was a lengthy discussion. That resolution got voted down. There was a discussion in Windsor, and I just had the concern, because Mr. Perret's posts online bringing national issues to South Windsor, and that was a concern of mine. I still haven't decided is the vote yet until we do a roll call or open vote. But again, national issues are not in for South Windsor, and bringing resolutions forward is my concern that will happen.
National issues are what? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
National issues or global issues, I should be more clear. Global issues have been brought up at council meetings around the state. Global issues have been posted online, forcing towns making resolutions for the ceasefire of Israel. And I'm afraid that's going to come forward, and that was my concerns with Mr. Perret. Because we are a team, we have to work together. It's not your team, our team. We are a team, and we're trying to work together. And it just comes across that there's pushback on anything that we're trying to do. That is my opinion.
And so I just want a clarification.
Yep.
The global issues that he was referring to as
I
a
have a
citizen,
concern, yes.
you have concerns with?
That is going to come up here, and we're going to be doing a resolution. Because it has a resolution, has been posted on the Democratic Town website as well, or Facebook page as well.
Okay. And that has nothing to do with our
And
agenda?
he actually put it on his page as well.
But that doesn't stop myself or Councilor King for bringing up a resolution on global issues either. We're already sitting here. So we certainly, any one of you could bring it up.
But that's in Connecticut, it's happening around town. Are you talking about the social justice type resolution, which I agreed with?
But I'm saying we could also, sitting here, bring up a resolution concerning global issues or national issues.
That's correct.
And there's no way to stop that. I mean, if someone's voiced they're concerned about global issues or national issues, has nothing to do with the council agenda and council issues and town issues.
I'm just stating my opinion.
Okay.
And posts that were done after the election, when things were supposed to be left alone,
Okay.
and there was an agreement that nothing would be done.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Thank you.
anything further? All those in favor, say aye. Oh,
Yeah, we
of
just
the,
need, I was going to say, point of order, just to make sure that we're clear on, are you amending back to the original resolution? Or are you saying that you would like us to vote?
I'm voting on Counselor Pendleton's resolution that she brought forward, with her changes.
What I brought forward is from 11A. What I read was from 11A. This is what is on our agenda.
Right, that's fine. I'm just asking, would you, and I asked before, and so I'm just asking for a point of clarification. In light of the conversation, that's why we have the discussion for this moment, would you consider item 13F being the original resolution, which is to postpone consideration of this motion until the next town meeting?
But I think she changed it when she,
Right, and that's why I'm just asking for the reconsideration. Like, we made a motion, I seconded it, then we had a discussion, and so I'm asking if she would reconsider based on the discussion.
Well, I'd just like to make a point of order that I read 11A, which is what I amended the agenda to have as 13F, but I'm looking at the bold words of 11A1, and it states at the next regular meeting, but the resolution doesn't state at the next regular meeting. And they're two different, it doesn't include it in the resolution. It doesn't matter what the bolding says, it matters what the resolution states, and the resolution states until November 10th,
be it resolved. That's what you're basing it on.
Be it resolved to appoint him this evening, because it's conflicting there. Mr. Town Attorney, do you see that? Because the bolding says next regular meeting, but the resolution itself does not state next regular meeting. Do you see what I'm saying?
The way my notes reflect is that your motion was, be it resolved that the Town of South Windsor Town Council hereby appoints Michael Perry as member of the South Windsor Town Council for a term ending November 10, 2025. That's all I have. I don't know.
Right,
I think the
'cause
rest
that's
of
how
it,
it is
the
on
rest
the-
of it was discussion. I think that Councilor King asked you if you would reconsider it. I don't know that that was ever acted on. So I think as it sits right now, what you have is, be it resolved, the town council appoints Michael Perret as member of the South Windsor Town Council for a term ending November 10, 2025.
Correct.
That's it.
However, above that on our agenda, it's expanded to say next regular scheduled meeting on our agenda, but it doesn't include that in the resolution.
That's a header.
The header doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Your motion, you should restate your motion, how you want the town council to act on it, or through the mayor, right? The mayor should call for however, what you intend the council to vote on.
Okay.
Just so we're clear. With
That's what I was asking
With
for
respect,
the-
Madam Mayor, why don't we be
point
probably
of
appropriate
clarification.
for the Councilor
Counselor Pendleton, do
Pendleton
you want to restate your motion?
Be it
Because you did-
resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby appoints Michael Perret as a member of South Windsor Town Council for a term ending November 10, 2025, and postponed till the next regular scheduled meeting.
Second.
So now we're changing and adding the postponing to the next scheduled meeting. And Mr. King, second. Any discussion? Counselor
I
Carey.
apologize, I'm just getting confused. So we're voting to postpone this till next meeting? Okay, I just want to make
Yes.
sure.
That's, I'm sorry, Madam Mayor.
Okay.
Yes, because we had a lengthy discussion.
Yes, so, but at the end of the day, to answer that question directly, yes. So we're saying this is the resolution, we're postponing the consideration of this motion so that we all have time, but we know that this motion is coming at the next meeting. So you have time to,
Have our conversations?
yes, marinate on it, so on and so forth, knowing full well that this resolution, the bottom piece, be it resolved, is going to be at the next meeting.
Do we have a second on this motion?
So I already
Do we have a
seconded.
second? Sorry, I know.
We're at the discussion. I just wanted,
Okay.
yep.
And we have your question. Any further discussion?
Yes, I definitely have a
Counselor
question
Beverly?
for the town attorney. So basically what you said is that if we don't fill it tonight, it's not a big deal. But if we don't fill it next time, we're avoiding the charter. So if we decide not to fill it next meeting, then what?
Then you need to go back to the drawing board and fill it pretty darn quick. Somebody's got to come up. At some point, you are violating the charter by not filling it.
At what point? Because like you said, there's no date in there, so it needs to be filled. It doesn't say when.
If you were to continue to postpone this and not act on it expediently, you'd be in violation of the town charter. I would say at the next meeting, you need to fill it.
So in other words, if we decide not to put Mr. Perret in that seat, how would they come up with another person?
That's up to the Democratic Party to nominate somebody and put somebody's name in the ring and.
Would you
maybe
take
have
another meeting?
Look, the town council, all 8 of you now, right, need to figure this out.
That's not helpful. Because I agree with Councilor Pendleton. I agree we don't want to violate the charter. I do agree with that. But I also completely disagree with their appointment, and I would probably disagree with the next one they come up with. But I do have a feeling there's someone in the Democratic Party that would work well up here with the rest of us. I don't think they're all.
If I may, Madam Mayor.
Yes, Mr.
I
Counselor.
don't think to Councilor Balboni's point, I don't think the issue is necessarily if, when, or who. As you are a counselor, you have one vote. So that said, we can't hold up town business just for one vote. You have that vote, you have that right to vote, you have that opinion to make that vote. I don't disagree with that vote. I don't disagree with the fact that you have that option to make that one vote. So I say that to say that this council can't take in that and say, oh, well, because Councilor Balboni has that one vote and he's unsure about the regulation that whether we may or may not fill that particular seat, because for all we know, the rest of your party may say yes, and now we're just wasted all this time for one man's vote, which you are able to have. So I just want to kind of put that out there to just kind of make sure that we stay centered, that each one of us has a vote, each one of us is respected for that vote, whether we agree or disagree with it. But at the end of the day, we have a motion on the floor. That's to postpone this, give us time to marinate on it, call for the question.
Are you making a motion to call the question?
Yeah, I'm just saying it. However, if you, again, one man, one vote, I'm just saying we can just keep it moving and say, even if you decide to say, you disagree, okay, cool. We don't, I'm just saying we don't necessarily need to go back and forth.
The thing I disagree with, if I may, is that I do not want to be forced to fill that seat without considering who we are putting in that seat. I believe that's fair.
I don't disagree. If we can have open discussion on this point, I don't disagree. I'm just saying that we can't stop the press. You have one vote, you decide what you want to do, and then we keep it moving based on the way that the rest of the council votes. So I don't disagree with you there.
I just want to make sure that everybody understands that what the town attorney is saying is that if we don't fill it next meeting, that then we're in violation of the charter. Okay, so therefore, either we do it tonight or next meeting. If we postpone this to next meeting, the only person that'll be for consideration is Mr. Perret. So therefore, our choices will be Mr. Perret or Mr. Perret.
Correct.
Right. So I want to make sure everybody's aware of that. Or a violation. There's a third choice, I guess. We always have a choice.
Well, let me just be clear.
Thank you.
The town charter says you have to fill the vacancy, all right? State law says you have to fill the vacancy. Unfortunately, they don't give you a time frame within which to do that, okay? I'm telling you, I think you need to do it expediently, okay? I'm not saying that you have to take, and you know, you can vote however you want, like Councilor King is saying, but I think at the end of the day, you have to move it forward, all right? It can't be something that you all back burner. That's all I'm saying.
So what you're saying is that if we did not fill it next meeting, we would not be violating the charter?
Not yet, yeah.
Okay, I'll ask the same question next meeting, about the next meeting, just so I'm clear on when expediently is, because that is not a date. And it's not a number of meetings, it is not pretty much anything. I just want to be clear. So if that's the case, we don't have to
I
fill
wish
it
there
next
were
meeting.
a statute, I wish your rules were clearer, I wish your charter were clearer, I wish I had chapter and verse that I could tell you exactly when you had to do this by. Unfortunately, I don't. There's nothing that guides us. It is a purely matter of local concern so that the state really doesn't get into it too much, other than to tell you that it's your responsibility to fill the position.
And now we're at ad nauseum, because now it's been said 5 or 6 times. I must call for the question. Now we're at ad nauseum.
And the motion is postponing it to the next scheduled meeting. That's what our motion is.
Correct.
Councilor Pendleton?
Correct.
Okay. All those in favor of postponing to the next scheduled meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Abstain? Roll call, please.
Counselor Baganski?
No.
Counselor Lewis?
Abstain?
Counselor Valboni?
Nope.
Counselor Carey?
Aye.
Mayor Del Nicky?
Abstain?
Counselor King? Yes. Counselor Pendleton? Yes. All right. We have 3 yeses, 2 noes, and 2 abstentions.
Resolution fails. Because we need 5 votes in the affirmative. Am I correct?
So then what happens now, Mr. Town Attorney? He comes back as another appointment on another agenda as of next week as a new person to be put on again with the resolution? Excuse me. Excuse me.
Counselor Pendleton, I've already
Point of order here, please.
made a motion to her to please abstain from shouting during the meeting.
Your motion to postpone the appointment failed, so it's still there. If you want to reconsider the appointment this evening, if you want to take it up at the next meeting somehow, I'll put it on the next agenda. That's probably the best way of doing it. But your motion to postpone it to the next meeting failed.
Okay, so we can put it on another resolution at the next meeting, correct?
Yep.
Thank you.
Moving on. Item 14, passage of ordinance, having none. Item 15, public input for any matter. Public input for any other matter over which the council has jurisdiction shall not exceed 30 minutes. When recognized by the mayor, the speaker shall approach the lectern, give their name and address. Speakers shall avoid personal attacks or impugning or alleging an improper motive to any person. The speaker may address the council on any item over which the council has jurisdiction. The speaker shall limit their speaking time to 5 minutes. Mr. Cavagnaro.
Thank you. Having brief technical difficulties. Here we go. Hi, everyone. Alan Cavagnaro, 83 Pine Knob Drive. Tonight, you are using Michael Pare as a political pawn and are drawing out the partisan divide in South Windsor. Mr. Pare is a devoted community member and a family man who has served multiple terms on the South Windsor Board of Education without letting national issues spill into his decision-making process on the Board of Ed. You are all making the terrible mistake of assuming his character without entertaining the motion of a conversation with Mr. Pare. You all serve on the town council and are obligated to do research when questions arise on your agenda. You all knew this appointment would happen for almost 2 weeks now, and most of you know Mr. Mike Pare and his experience as a CFO and a former Board of Ed member. That CFO experience would provide an extensive background to this council as we are currently in the budget cycle. Mr. Pare has been an active community member in South Windsor since 2017, serving this town in various capacities. What more questions do you have to ask? It has been 7 years of his public service to this town. At the end of the day, the majority has decided to drag the ball on this appointment. It is an embarrassing look that the majority cannot lead and agree that there are common differences among their party who holds the majority and those on the other side of the aisle. I recall a time a couple months ago in November when the ruling party stated they wanted to unite South Windsor when they took office. However, it seems through their leadership, they're only tearing this town apart. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Cavagnaro. Mr. Appleton?
Thanks for providing me another opportunity.
Yep, there you go.
Is that better?
Thank you.
I don't think I did that before. Thank you, Madam Mayor, for providing me another opportunity to speak on behalf of Mike Pare. I'm glad, Councilor Lewis, you brought up social media, and Mayor Delnicki and Councilor Balboni brought up national politics. To be clear, Mike has never uttered anti-Semitic or racist statements or posted anti-Semitic memes, never has sought to delay or minimize the effects of COVID-19, never argued to ban a book or denied someone's First Amendment rights to free speech, nor has Mike ever called for the investigations of our teachers and neighbors, or has Mike ever been accused of violating municipal government ethics. Finally, I'd say what's ironic is by evoking global politics and national politics to deny this appointment, it brings in those same national and global politics into this town council. And that's the shame of it, and what Mr. Cavagnaro was speaking about will kind of not do well for this community and tear it apart. I strongly urge you all to take this time now to reconsider. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Appleton. Anyone else would like to come forward at this time?
Good evening, Mike Pare, 1497 Main Street. I just wanted to take the opportunity to introduce myself here. Most of you I know or have met. I served for half a term with Mayor Delnicki on the Board of Education. I served on the Human Relations Commission for a term with Councilor Carey. I've obviously worked closely with Councilor Pendleton and Councilor King, and I've at least met with Councilor Lewis on a few occasions. As was said, my background is 20-plus years in finance. I'm currently a chief financial officer for a community bank in Western Massachusetts. I have been elected to the Board of Education for 3 terms, and during that time, I think that it's safe to say that we have always acted in a bipartisan manner. I am proud to be a Democrat, and there are national issues that impact people who live in South Windsor and who work in South Windsor and who go to school in South Windsor. And I think that it's important for our council to be willing to discuss that. Unity at the expense of silencing things that need to be discussed is not true unity, in my view. So I am always willing to work in a professional and cordial manner with people of all parties. I currently operate with a board of directors at my job with people of all political affiliations, including on the Republican Party and Libertarian parties. So I'm comfortable working with people of diverse beliefs and making sure that we can keep it civil and professional. So I am certainly happy to meet with anybody and share my phone number and discuss if any of you have specific questions. I will not shy away from using my First Amendment rights to discuss things in my private life that are important to me. And if unfortunately that makes it so that you can't vote for me, then so be it. But I appreciate your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Perret. Mr. Zimmerman?
Craig Zimmerman, 5 a.m. Auto Drive. I certainly hadn't expected to speak tonight. Didn't know that this was going to be controversial. As somebody who was the chairman of the board for the 6 years that Mr. Perret was on the Board of Ed, I can tell you that if you ask any of the Board of Ed members, Republican, United Party, or Democrat, they would tell you, if they were here today, that he was a valued member of the board. If need be, I am pretty sure there'll be a little bit of pressure, but I am pretty sure that the Republican members of the Board of Ed over the last 6 years, at least some of them, will come to the microphone in 2 weeks or 4 weeks if that need be. If anybody's worried about how Michael was on the Board of Ed, I'm just amazed. I, for one, have opinions outside of South Windsor. I've shared them occasionally on Facebook, along with pretty much every member of the town council, regardless of party. I'm not going to get into the particulars. Unfortunately, I think a door has been opened that is not going to be closed now, and it's not going to be good for the town. But hopefully, when you guys get to vote, whether it's 2 weeks or 4 weeks, you're voting on somebody who's going to add value to the town council. You're not voting against somebody who maybe has opinions on who should be president or where there should be a war in the world, because if that's the criteria, we're in a whole lot of trouble. And I don't want to read that newspaper article because it's going to be embarrassing for the town. If you asked the superintendent and her staff the value of various Board of Ed members, I got to tell you, Mr. Perret would be near the top of the list. And I'm pretty sure that if you ask the superintendent and her staff, from a budget standpoint, who was the go-to person on the Board of Ed? It was Mr. Perret. And part of the reason we got through COVID and a bunch of other challenges was because of his leadership. So I'm hoping there's a little bit of a cool down period. I hope people can, reflect and think about it, because I really think we're missing the point if somebody like Mike Perret doesn't get appointed to the council. Because quite honestly, he's the best representative the Democratic Party in town has, and he'll do a phenomenal job. And he will be a team member. Now, that doesn't mean that you're always going to agree, because I think he'll be the first to admit that we don't always agree. But is he qualified? Would he be a phenomenal member of the town council? And does he deserve an appointment? Absolutely. Has he done anything wrong other than been an American with an opinion? Absolutely not. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zimmerman. Appreciate your comments. Anyone else would like to come forward at this time? Anyone else like to come forward? Seeing none, moving on to item 16, communications from the council. Anyone who has communications from the council? Seeing none, moving on to 17, executive session. We have none. Item 18, adjournment. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none, motion carries.